They paid her to carry their baby. They promised to love him, no matter what. But the moment he was born, they looked at his face and walked out. No questions, no explanation, just silence, and a crying newborn left behind. What did they see? What secret was written on that tiny face? And why did they never come back? This is the story the agency tried to cover up. The one hospital staff were told not to discuss. And it begins with a woman named Emma. Emma Davis was 28, a teacher, single, never had children of her own. But when she saw a flyer about surrogacy in the staff lounge, something stirred inside her. Change a life, it said. Give the gift of a family. The money was decent. The idea felt noble. She signed up. 2 weeks later, she was matched with Ryan and Julia Whitmore. Wealthy, charming, picture perfect. Julia was graceful, soft-spoken. Ryan was confident, polished. They told Emma they'd been trying for years. IVF had failed them. Adoption agencies had rejected them. Now, surrogacy was their last hope. At first, it felt beautiful. They called Emma weekly, sent her flowers after appointments, even attended the gender reveal twins until one was lost early in the second trimester. The remaining child, a boy, grew strong. But by month 7, the tone changed. Julia stopped calling. Ryan postponed a video chat 3 times. Then came the lawyer clinical, cold requesting that Emma deliver at a private hospital under strict supervision. Standard procedure, they said. Emma didn't argue. She just wanted to do the right thing. On the morning of the birth, contractions hit hard. 12 hours of labor. No epidural. No family, except for her mother holding her hand. And when it was over, when the baby's first cry echoed off the sterile white walls, Emma expected tears of joy from the parents. Instead, silence. The Whitmores entered the room minutes later. Julia wore sunglasses, despite the low light. Ryan looked tired, or was it tense? They approached the crib. Emma smiled weakly. "He's perfect," she whispered. Ryan looked down. Julia leaned in. Then both of them froze. Not a word. Not a sound. Julia stepped back. Her hand covered her mouth. Ryan stared, unblinking. And then they turned. Walked out of the room. Walked out of the hospital. Gone. Emma didn't understand. The nurses didn't either. Security was called. The hospital administrator arrived. But the Whitmores had already driven off. Maybe there was a misunderstanding, someone whispered. But the whispers didn't stop. They got louder. One nurse, red-eyed, said quietly, they didn't like what they saw. "But he's healthy," Emma said. "Perfect." And he was. 10 fingers, 10 toes, breathing fine, latching fine. So why would they leave? The answer wouldn't come that night. Not from the hospital, not from the agency. But 2 days later, a piece of paper slid under Emma's door. Unsigned, no letterhead, and it would shatter everything. Emma stared at the paper on the floor. She picked it up slowly, hands trembling. The envelope was blank. No return address, just her name, typed in capital letters, Emma Davis. Inside, a single sheet. She unfolded it. "You don't know what you've done. We told them to test. They didn't. Now you're holding the proof." No signature, no initials, no explanation. Her stomach dropped. She read it again. And again. Proof of what? She rushed to the bassinet. The baby was asleep, tiny chest rising and falling. His face was round, peaceful, his skin a rich caramel tone, his hair already curled at the edges. And suddenly, it hit her. Ryan and Julia Whitmore were white. Very white. She hadn't thought much about genetics, skin tone, DNA variations, but now her mind spiraled. What if? She picked up her phone and searched her inbox, scrolling past appointment confirmations, legal documents, ultrasounds, until she found it. The embryo transfer report. One embryo, donor egg, Ryan Whitmore's sperm. That's what they told her. But something didn't add up. Her heart pounded. Emma called the agency. A receptionist answered. "Hello, Bright Path Surrogacy. How can I help? I need to speak to my case manager. Urgently." After a long pause, they transferred her. "Emma," said a calm voice. "It's Olivia. Is everything all right?" "No," Emma said. "The parents left. At the hospital. They looked at him and walked out, and I got this letter." She read it aloud. Silence. Then Olivia said, "Emma, we need to come by and speak to you. In person." 2 hours later, 3 people arrived. Not just Olivia, a legal advisor, and someone who introduced himself as Dr. Fields, a genetics consultant. They sat in the corner of her room, notepad, tablet, clipboard. Emma held the baby tightly. "We're going to ask you a few questions," Olivia said gently. "Nothing to worry about." But Emma could see it in their eyes. Something was very wrong. "Do you recall if you were sexually active during the embryo transfer cycle?" the doctor asked. Emma blinked. "What? Why would that matter?" "Sometimes, in very rare cases," he said, "natural conception can occur in the same window, even with a scheduled embryo transfer. It's statistically improbable, but biologically possible." She felt like the floor fell out from under her. "You're saying he might be my child?" "We can't say that yet," Olivia cut in, "but the Whitmores are claiming the child is not theirs." Emma's breath caught. The words echoed, "Not theirs." That's why they left. That's why they didn't even ask. They saw his face and knew. She looked down at the baby again. Was this her son? Was this child, the one she had tried so hard not to attach to, actually hers? They needed a DNA test. But the agency wouldn't do it, not right away, not until their lawyers approved. Emma didn't wait. She called a friend from the school where she used to teach, someone with connections at a private clinic. 3 days later, the results were in. And when Emma opened the email, everything stopped. The child she was holding was 99.97% biologically hers. But Ryan Whitmore? 0%. The embryo, they said, they implanted, had never taken. Somehow, against all odds, Emma had gotten pregnant naturally. On the exact same day as the transfer, she wasn't just the surrogate anymore. She was the mother. But that wasn't the end. Because what came next wasn't just rejection. It was retaliation. Emma had barely processed the DNA results when her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered hesitantly. "Hello?" "Miss Davis," a stern male voice said. "This is Greg Simmons. I represent Ryan and Julia Whitmore. This call is being recorded for legal purposes." Her heart rate spiked. "I'm calling to inform you," he continued, "that any public disclosure of our client's identity or this situation will result in legal action." Emma was speechless. "They left their child at the hospital," she said. "They're the ones." "Correction," Simmons snapped. "They left your child at the hospital. The embryo transfer failed. What you delivered is not theirs. Our clients were misled, emotionally manipulated, and they are prepared to sue for damages." Emma couldn't believe what she was hearing. "They're suing me?" "For breach of contract," he said coldly. "For emotional distress. For reputational damage." She ended the call. Her hands were shaking. She wasn't just alone now. She was being threatened. The agency wouldn't return her messages. Olivia had disappeared. The hospital had already discharged her. She was home jobless, exhausted, with a newborn baby and a legal storm forming overhead. She called a lawyer. Her mother mortgaged her car to cover the retainer. And that's when Emma found something. Something that changed everything. While cleaning out a drawer of old paperwork, she found a flash drive. It had been inside a folder given to her by the agency back in month 5, supposed to contain nursery inspirations and sample prenatal music. She never opened it. But now, desperate for anything that could help, she plugged it in. There was only one file, a video. She clicked play. It was footage from inside the agency. Security camera. Ryan Whitmore, pacing in a private room. His voice was raised. "I don't care what you have to do," he said. "We want a white child. I don't want surprises. I don't want defects. I want control." Emma froze. The clip jumped. Julia's voice now. "What if it doesn't take?" she asked. Ryan. "Then it doesn't take. But she'll never know." The implication hit her like a freight train. The embryo transfer was never real. They had used her. Used the illusion of surrogacy to cover something else. But why? Why go through all that effort? Emma showed the video to her attorney. He leaned back in his chair, pale. "We need to go public," he said. "This isn't just a custody issue anymore. This is fraud, racial bias, medical malpractice, and maybe more." Emma wasn't ready. She didn't want fame. She didn't want revenge. She just wanted to protect her son. But the choice was being taken from her. Because that night, a black SUV parked outside her apartment. Engine running, lights off. For hours. The next morning, her mailbox had been pried open. Her door lock had fresh scratches. And on her windshield, a single note. "You were never meant to be a mother." It wasn't just legal now. It was personal. They were watching her. They wanted her to be afraid. But Emma wasn't going to back down. Because what she didn't know yet was that this wasn't the first time the Whitmores had done this. And it wouldn't be the last. Emma knew she had to act fast. Her lawyer, Mark Brenner, began gathering everything: emails, medical records, the agency's communications, and of course, the video from the flash drive. But it wasn't enough. The Whitmores had money, influence, lawyers on speed dial. Emma had a baby, a part-time lawyer, and a truth no one wanted to hear. So she started digging. She searched public forums for other surrogates connected to BrightPath, the agency that matched her with the Whitmores. Most of them ignored her messages. One woman responded. Her name was Rachel. She had carried a baby through BrightPath 2 years prior. They agreed to talk by phone. Rachel's voice was flat, hesitant. "I don't know what happened to you, but I'll tell you this. After I gave birth, the couple vanished. No contact, no explanation. They said they'd pick up the baby. Never showed." Emma's breath caught. "You never heard from them again?" "Just once," Rachel said. "Their lawyer called, said they were terminating the agreement, that the baby didn't match expectations." "What expectations?" "They wouldn't say." Emma's mind raced. 2 women, 2 vanished couples, 2 abandoned newborns. She pressed Rachel. "Do you remember their names?" There was silence on the line. Then Rachel whispered, "Julia and Ryan." It was them. The Whitmores. Twice. Emma felt cold spread through her chest. What were the odds? She asked Rachel to meet. They did quietly, at a library across town. Emma brought her baby. Rachel came alone. They compared notes, documents, emails, dates, and slowly a picture began to form. BrightPath had a pattern. They used surrogates, young, financially strained women with little legal leverage. They matched them with couples who made promises, then broke them when expectations weren't met. Emma's case wasn't unique. It was a system. But no one had ever gone public. Because every time someone tried, they were silenced. Rachel showed Emma a cease and desist letter from 2 years ago. Emma recognized the logo. Same firm that had called her. Same legal language. Same signature. Greg Simmons. Emma took photos of everything. She handed it all to her lawyer. Mark leaned back in his chair. "They've been doing this for years," he said. "And if we push this to court, we're not just fighting for custody anymore. We're exposing an operation." But before they could even file the first motion, something happened that changed everything. A reporter showed up at Emma's door. Her name was Leah Wright. She claimed she'd been tipped off by an anonymous hospital employee about an abandoned baby and a legal cover-up. Emma didn't want the attention. But Leah wasn't just any reporter. She'd covered illegal adoption rings, surrogacy scams, fertility clinic fraud. She wasn't afraid of lawsuits. Emma let her in. And as she spoke, as she told her story out loud for the first time, beginning to end something inside her shifted. This wasn't just about her anymore. It wasn't even just about her son. It was about every woman who had been used, discarded, erased, and every child left without a name, a future, a family. But just as the story was about to break, the Whitmores resurfaced. This time with a lawsuit of their own, filed in federal court, alleging defamation, demanding custody, and claiming that Emma had stolen the embryo. The agency backed them, and the media split in half. Now Emma wasn't just a single mother. She was a villain on national television, a thief, a liar, a manipulator. But she had one thing no one else had: the truth. And it was about to take center stage. The headlines were brutal. Surrogate steals baby, couple fights for what's rightfully theirs. Fertility fraud. The dark side of modern motherhood. Heartbreak or heist. The Emma Davis controversy. Photos of Emma, disheveled from exhaustion, carrying her baby down courthouse steps, were plastered across social media. The Whitmores had arrived with a team of lawyers, designer suits, and a calm rehearsed for cameras. Julia wore white. Ryan gave statements. "We're devastated," he said. "We trusted the system. We never wanted this to become public. We just want our child." Emma watched them from the hallway. Her fists clenched. They had never held this child, never named him, never fed him in the dark hours of the night when he cried, never called, never cared. But now that the media was involved, they wanted to be the victims. And the world was buying it. Emma's lawyer, Mark, filed a countersuit for custody, damages, and full exposure of BrightPath's records. Then came the hearings. Judge Holloway presented stern, no nonsense, a reputation for cutting through drama. Emma was sworn in first. She told the truth. Every word. The contract, the transfer, the video, the letter, the threats, the surveillance car, the scratched lock. The baby in her arms the entire time, quiet, warm, unaware he had become a symbol of a national debate. Then the Whitmores took the stand. Julia cried. Ryan recited facts. They called Emma unstable, claimed she had seduced the situation, that she'd tampered with the embryo process, that she fabricated the DNA results. Mark presented the certified lab test. They challenged its authenticity. He showed the footage from the flash drive. They objected. But the judge watched every second. Ryan's voice. His words, "We want a white child. No surprises. I want control." Silence filled the courtroom. Julia wouldn't look up. The judge turned to the Whitmore's attorney. "Explain this," she said. They couldn't tell. Outside, protesters had gathered. Some held signs. "Stop surrogacy abuse." Others shouted in defense of the Whitmores. The case had become national news. Talk shows, podcasts, legal panels dissected every motion. But in the middle of all of it, Emma stayed focused. She fed her son. She read to him at night. She gave him a name, Noah. Noah Davis. Because he needed something no one could take from him. A name, a mother, a home. Then came the twist no one expected. A former BrightPath employee, anonymous, voice disguised, contacted Leah, the reporter. He claimed there were at least 6 other women like Emma. Same story, same agency, same couple. Leah published the expose. Designer babies. Inside the elite surrogacy ring no one wants to talk about. And for the first time, the tide began to turn. The agency's phones went dark. Their website vanished. The Whitmores stopped giving interviews. But it wasn't over. Because in a sealed document, discovered during discovery phase, was a contract. Signed 2 years before Emma ever met the Whitmores. And the name on it wasn't Julia. It was another woman. Same sperm donor. Same embryo clinic. Different surrogate. Different baby. That child had vanished. No birth certificate. No adoption record. No trace. And Emma wasn't the first mother they tried to erase. The document didn't lie. It was a standard surrogacy agreement, signed, notarized, and time-stamped nearly 2 years before Emma ever entered the picture. Same agency, BrightPath. Same intended father, Ryan Whitmore. But the name beside intended mother wasn't Julia. It was Vanessa Brooks. Emma sat with the file in her hands, the weight of it pressing into her chest. "Who is she?" she asked. Her lawyer, Mark, looked up. "That's what we need to find out." They ran the name through public databases, birth registries, court filings, nothing. No matching surrogacy outcomes. No child born under Vanessa's name. No trace of a baby. A ghost contract. But if there was no birth certificate, no official record, what happened to the child? Emma called Leah, the reporter. They worked together for 2 days, digging through archives, tracing old staff from the agency. One former nurse remembered the name. Vanessa Brooks. She was quiet, the nurse said over a shaky phone call. Didn't speak much, seemed nervous. "And the baby?" Leah asked. Silence. Then, she gave birth early. Complications. Baby went to NICU. Where? Private wing. But she never got to hold him. Said they told her he wasn't viable. Emma felt her stomach drop. "What do you mean?" she asked. "They told her the baby died, but there was no death certificate." And that's when it hit Emma. What if the baby hadn't died? What if the Whitmores had taken that child and buried the paper trail? They needed proof. Emma and Leah requested hospital records under Freedom of Information laws. It took weeks. Red tape, legal, back and forth. But finally, one file slipped through. A discharge note from the private NICU at Cedar Hills Medical Center. A newborn boy, 5 pounds. Born to surrogate Vanessa Brooks. Discharged not to the mother, but to an unnamed third party. Emma read it 10 times. Unnamed. No address. No signature. Just a courier company. Leah looked up from the file. That's not just illegal, that's trafficking. The word hung in the air like smoke. They had stumbled onto something far bigger than a custody case. This was an entire system disguised under legal terms, layered in contracts, hidden behind wealth. The Whitmores weren't just problematic parents. They were predators. And Emma? She was the first one to push back. But doing so had a cost. Within 48 hours of the expose on Vanessa being published, Emma's apartment was broken into. Nothing was stolen. Except one thing. Noah's hospital bracelet. The original ID band from the day of his birth. Gone. She filed a police report. No suspects. No fingerprints. Then, an envelope arrived in her mailbox. No stamp. No return address. Inside, a photo a crib, a baby monitor, a nursery, and a message: "If you keep digging, you'll end up buried too." Emma sat on the floor, shaking. She clutched Noah to her chest. She wasn't just a mother in a legal battle anymore. She was a target. But there was no going back. Because buried deep in the next document Leah uncovered was a payment record. And it linked the Whitmores to a name Emma had never seen before, but one that would blow the entire case open. The name was buried in financial documents buried deep. A payment from Ryan Whitmore's private trust fund to a clinic in Nevada. Amount: $125,000. Memo line: Consulting, D. Holloway. Emma stared at the page, her mind racing. Holloway. It was familiar. Too familiar. Mark, her lawyer, flipped through court transcripts from their custody hearings. There it was. Presiding Judge D. Holloway. Emma felt the breath leave her lungs. The same judge who had ruled on her case had received money from Ryan Whitmore's trust. "This is judicial corruption," Mark muttered. "And if this is real, we're not just dealing with fraud, we're dealing with a criminal network." They needed more. Leah went to work using connections, verifying accounts, building a paper trail. Within days, they had enough to bring the evidence to the state attorney general's office. But just before the meeting, something happened. Emma got a call from her old school. The principal sounded shaken. "There were 2 men here," he said, "asking questions about you, pretending to be journalists." Emma's chest tightened. What did they want? They asked if you ever had disciplinary issues, if you were mentally stable, if you'd ever been in therapy. Emma hung up. They weren't just attacking her legally anymore. They were trying to erase her credibility. A new smear campaign began. Anonymous tips flooded news outlets known true. Photos of Emma from college, out of context, circulated online. Conspiracy forums began spinning narratives. Was the baby even real? Is this just a scam for fame? Why would anyone leave a baby unless something was wrong with it? Emma stopped reading the comments. She focused on Noah. But the weight of the attacks was growing. Then, another letter. Handwritten. No envelope, just left at her doorstep. "You're not the first, but you can be the last. Meet me where it all began." No name, just a location. The original Bright Path Agency office. But that office had shut down weeks ago. Emma debated it for hours. Mark told her not to go. Leah warned her to bring police. But something in her gut said this was it. She went. She waited. And just when she was about to leave, a woman appeared. Older, pale, tired. She introduced herself as Ellen Strauss. "I was Bright Path's coordinator," she said, 10 years ago. Emma didn't speak. Ellen continued, eyes heavy with regret. "I saw things. I kept quiet. I convinced myself it was just business. But it wasn't." Emma asked her the one question she'd been holding back for months. "What do they want with these babies?" Ellen paused and said, "Not all of them are meant for families." Emma's skin went cold. Ellen reached into her coat and handed over a flash drive. "Everything's on here," she said. "Contracts, payments, transfers, identities. But be careful." Emma took it. Ellen was gone before she could ask another question. Back at home, Mark decrypted the drive. It was massive. Hundreds of files, dozens of surrogates, payment trails across state lines, babies delivered and never seen again. And then one folder marked in red, Match 71, Experimental Clearance. Inside were files stamped with government seals. Emma opened one. It had her name, her social security number, her blood type, and a label: genetic variation, target positive. The Whitmores hadn't just left Noah because of how he looked. They had chosen her for a reason. And what they were really after had never been love or family or a child. It had been something inside her. Emma sat frozen. Her name, her blood type, her file, labeled genetic variation, target positive, clearance approved, subject viable for cross-line replication. What does this mean? She whispered. Mark leaned in. This isn't just surrogacy. This looks like research, like some kind of private medical program. Emma opened more folders. Names of other women, notes about their physical health, family histories, even psychological profiles. Many were marked with outcomes. Match failed, terminated, transfer complete, infant unaccounted, subject rejected, developmental traits abnormal. Then she found it Noah's file, labeled Infant 71B. Born, redacted. Status, unauthorized delivery. Immediate containment recommended. Lineage, redacted. Flag, do not release to biological. Emma's mouth went dry. They had never intended to give her son to Año Ninot even themselves. They had been experimenting. She looked at Mark. This isn't a custody battle. This is a black market genetics operation. He nodded. They didn't want a baby. They wanted a result. Emma remembered the moment in the hospital, the way Julia had looked at Noah. Not with fear, not with surprise, with disgust. Like something had gone wrong. Like he didn't come out the way they wanted. Emma reached for the drive again and scrolled deeper. She found surveillance logs, doctors visiting homes, hidden transfers, even email exchanges. One message stood out. From Dr. L. Ravitz to Ryan Whitmore. Subject, match 71B, rejection confirmed. Body, child displays unintended phenotypic traits, likely due to natural fertilization. Subject is no longer useful. Proceed with erasure. Erasure. They wanted her child gone. Not abandoned. Erased. Erased from records. Erased from the system. Erased from the world. Emma's hands shook as she held Noah close. He was sleeping peacefully in her arms. She had no idea what phenotypic traits meant, and she didn't care. He was her son. And now she knew why they had fought so hard to discredit her. Because if anyone ever connected the dots between BrightPath, the private funding, the erased babies, and the corrupted judge, it would take down more than just the Whitmores. It would take down a network of powerful people with everything to lose. The next day, she and Mark brought the entire drive to the FBI. Agents took statements, copied the files, promised a full investigation. But 2 hours later, Emma received an anonymous voicemail. A voice, digitally altered. You made a mistake. There's no going back now. You think you're protecting him, but we were the only ones who could. The call cut off. No number, no trace. Mark tried to calm her. They're desperate. That means they're exposed. But Emma couldn't sleep that night. She kept checking Noah's crib. She moved the couch in front of the door. She turned off her phone. Because deep down, she knew. They wouldn't stop. Not until they got what they came for. And what they came for was never the baby. It was her bloodline. Emma didn't leave the apartment for days. She changed her routine, stopped answering unknown calls, switched phones. Mark installed cameras. Leah went underground, preparing an exclusive that could blow the entire operation wide open. But the pressure was mounting. Every doorbell made her jump. Every night she imagined headlights outside her window. And every time Noah cried, she felt the weight of 2 wars, one for justice and one to keep him safe. Then one morning, a letter arrived, certified, signed, from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, marked Confidential Investigation Update. It read, "Your file is under federal review. You may be called to testify. Your son is under temporary protected status. The entity formerly operating as BrightPath is under criminal investigation. We have reason to believe your pregnancy was selected as part of an unregulated human genetic program." Emma sat in silence. It was real. Everything she feared. Everything she had uncovered. They weren't just trying to erase her. They had been watching her from the start. She thought back to that flyer in the teacher's lounge, to the soft promises of changing lives, to the agency that called her the same day she signed up, to the kindness that felt too rehearsed. It was all staged. She wasn't chosen by accident. She was targeted. For her immune profile, for her ancestry, for something in her DNA that fit into a project bigger than surrogacy. And now, her son was the only known living outcome of that program. She didn't know what that meant for his future. Would he be healthy? Would others try to find him? Would he live a normal life? All she knew was that he was here. And he was hers. Mark called that afternoon. "They're requesting you testify in Washington." Emma agreed. She stood before a closed congressional hearing 2 weeks later. Lawyers, scientists, agents, senators. She told them everything. The agency, the embryo lie, the transfer, the withdrawal, the flash drive, the baby. At the end of her testimony, one senator asked, "Why did you risk everything, Miss Davis, when you could have walked away quietly?" Emma looked across the room. "Because I know what it's like to feel unwanted," she said. "But no child should be born into silence. My son was supposed to disappear, and I couldn't let that happen." The room was quiet. Noah was waiting in the hallway with her mother. Sleeping, breathing, alive. Weeks passed. Charges were filed. Arrests were made. The Whitmores disappeared from the public eye. The agency's executives were indicted. But the Judge D. Holloway resigned quietly. No prison time. No statements. Just vanished. Leah published a full-length documentary, "The Cost of Design: The Silent War for Perfect Children." It went viral. But Emma stayed out of the spotlight. She moved to a small town in Oregon, taught part-time, raised Noah in a quiet home surrounded by trees. He grew quickly, strong, curious, kind. And one night, at 3 years old, he asked her, "Why don't I have a daddy?" Emma smiled. "You have me. But what about the other people?" She froze. "What other people?" He pointed to the window. "The ones who used to watch." Emma pulled him close. "They're gone," she said. But deep inside, she knew. Some secrets never disappear. They just wait. And when the right child is born, they try again. Because what they were after was never just a baby. It was a blueprint.